Welcome to the video tutorial on how to use PageGate's WebData API. PageGate has an HTTP data receiver, WebData.exe, that can receive input from nearly any API or protocol that offers an HTTP or HTTPS request, like HTTP GET, HTTP POST, and the WCTP protocol. This allows you to receive JSON, XML, HTML, WCTP, and similar data submissions via HTTP or HTTPS request. Received data doesn't need to conform to a single standard, as it's fully processed with the Ascii interface, and, optionally, depending on what you want to do with the received data, the filter pack. If you want to receive multiple data formats, the filter pack isn't optional, and you will need to implement a filtering system to tell PageGate what to do with each format received. The API itself is a CGI executable named WebData.exe that must be hosted on a web server your sending systems can access. In some cases, this lets you run IIS on the PageGate server for an intranet accessible API. If you have something that can submit web forms or post information via HTTP or HTTPS, like a ticket tracking system, records management system, monitoring system, and things like them, this provides a way for them to trigger messages in PageGate. In other cases, you'll need to host the executable on an outward-facing web server to provide an internet-accessible URL, then provide UNC access to the directory on the web server where WebData.exe is hosted. If you're dealing with an internet or cloud-based system, this provides a way for that system to provide information to your PageGate server. In more practical terms, the file WebData.exe is located in the PageGate program directory and must be copied to the web server hosting the API. If PageGate is not running on the web server hosting WebData.exe, you'll also need to share the directory where WebData.exe is hosted and provide the UNC file path to PageGate's Ascii interface. The WebData API is only a receiver. All data received is ultimately processed by Ascii and potentially with assistance from the filter pack. On a related note, PageGate's filter pack opens up quite a few possibilities by allowing you to receive multiple data types from a single or multiple sources, but it also allows you to create conditional logic for message processing. As an example, you could configure a filter that changes who should receive an alert or message based on keywords or key phrases in the received data. For instance, you could scan for the word lunch in the body of the message and direct it to the cafeteria group instead of a general distribution group. As another example, it is possible to receive replies from WCTP gateways, and you could configure a filter that directs all replies from specific senders to a specified destination, like an email distribution list, an SMS to administrators, or any number of things. You could configure a system where messages from a certain phone number or sender ID will always be copied to specific recipients and groups as well. One of the other benefits of the filter is that it can do everything I've just described at the same time. You aren't limited in the type, style, or number of filters you can apply to your server. So, getting started, the first thing you'll need to do is host WebData.exe on your web server to provide the URL for the API. In the example I'm going to show you, we're walking through configuring a local instance of IIS on the PageGate server to provide an intranet accessible API. To note it, the following steps are for IIS, but this can be done in any web server suite. So the first step is to copy WebData.exe from the PageGate program directory to your server's scripting directory. Next, open the IIS admin and select the server object here on the left. Open Handler Mappings, then right-click CGI-exe and left-click Edit Feature Permissions. Check Execute, then click OK. Select the server object again, and open ISAPI and CGI restrictions. Right-click in the box, and select Add. Here in the ISAPI or CGI path, we want to specify the location of WebData.exe. In the description, it's PageGate's API handler, and we want to check Allow extension path to execute, then click OK. Each API and protocol will have a unique structure to the data returned to your server, and you'll need to tell PageGate how to interpret that data. To do that, we'll want to configure an advanced polling rule for the getAscii interface. To do that, open pgadmin, and then expand Interfaces, getAscii, Settings, Advanced Polling. Click Files, then click Add. Leave the recipient as an asterisk, leave the From field blank. In Files, enter **ASC. Specify the directory where WebData.exe is stored on the web server in the path field, and set the file type to custom. Click on Apply. Note: if you will be implementing a filtering system, you will do so at this point. For more information, please see PageGate's filter script documentation. Next, we want to go to the Record section here under Advanced Polling. Set the start pattern to an asterisk, the start offset to 0, the end pattern to a tilde, and the end offset to 0. What we're effectively doing is telling PageGate that everything in the received record is relevant data to be processed. Click Apply, then go to the Recipient section under Advanced Polling. This section tells PageGate where in the data to look for the recipient or group this message should go to. Select Dynamic Recipient, and then we'll need to configure the start pattern, end pattern, start offset, and end offset. This is where the data type you're working with is going to be very important. So I'm going to take you through a few XML examples and a WCTP example. Let's say we're using XML. You would key off of one of the XML tags by specifying the opening tag as the start pattern and the closing tag as the end pattern. To use another example, if you were keying off of the sender ID value in a WCTP reply, you would set sender ID equals open quote as the start pattern, and your end pattern would be a quote. The start offset should be the number of characters in the start pattern. The end offset should be the number of characters in the end pattern expressed as a negative value. Once you have everything filled out, click Apply, then go to the Advanced Polling Sender section. This section tells PageGate where in the data to look for the sender value. For most implementations, you can select Static Sender and specify a sender value. However, if the sender's name will be contained in the data read, you can select Dynamic Sender, and parameters are configured similarly to the Recipient section. Click Apply, then go to the Advanced Polling Message section. This section tells PageGate what in the data should be considered the message, and also allows for basic reformatting of messages. Select Dynamic Message, and configure the parameters. If you want everything in the received data to be considered the message, you would use a start pattern of asterisk, a start offset of 0, an end pattern of tilde, and an end offset of 0. However, let's use our XML example and say that the message we're interested in is contained in one of the XML tags. Our start pattern would be the opening tag, and our end pattern would be the closing tag. To use an example from WCTP, we could key off of the WCTP-alphanumeric tag, which would make WCTP-alphanumeric our start pattern, and the closing operator for that the end pattern. Again, start offsets are the number of characters in the start pattern, and your end offset is the number of characters in the end pattern expressed as a negative value. This lookup table function enables PageGate to perform basic search and replace commands on the message data. This allows you to interchange or translate values as needed. To enable this feature, check Use Lookup Table, then click Edit Table. Here, we can add and remove basic search and replace routines. For example, if we wanted to search for FPDN and replace it with 4th Precinct, you would do that. Once finished, click Apply, then click Apply again. This concludes the video tutorial on how to configure PageGate's WebData API. For more information, including how to use the filter pack, have a look at our website, www.notepage.net.